Rabbi Sai, we're starting Baruch Hashem. We're holding today in Daf Yechezkel, and we're starting in the bottom of Daf Yud Zayin and with base. Let's start. We're going to have this Daf a little bit of a Chulin dik Yonim, but let's see. First of all, we're going to start. We're really ending the sugya that we had yesterday. The Gemara goes on and says, "Omar Vuno Ba'aktino Omar Shim Melokish Shalosh Gimois Hem." The three gimos. Gimos means like cracks or indentation or ruin something. Give us emet to Pesach. That's a Pesach. Pesach, you're not allowed to break the bone. So if you have a gimo, you have a crack in the bone, it's also a problem. Give us oizim b'bchor. You're now in a b'chor, which is kadosh. You're not allowed to make a mum. If there's a little bit of a crack in the ear, even the ear, it's already a problem. And because of mum, give us mum b'kachim, or any type of mum that you have by kachim is also a b'gimel. Right? These are the three b'gimels that we mentioned. Now, Rai would say, why do we distinguish between b'chor and kachim? So Rashi points out, b'chor is a male always, and a kachim can be a female. And one of the things that you have by a female is the sfas beis harechem, basically the entry to the womb. So that also is considered to be a mum over there. That's something special. Okay, now all these things you have the same inyan of the begima. The begima is, as we'll see in a moment, that you have kidei the size of chagiras atzipoirin. With the nail, you put the nail in it, and the nail falls, cracks into the hole. Right? So it says like this. Also, begima sakin, we're talking about chulin. We're not dealing with chulin, we're talking about kosher. Talk about some English. They all have the same definition of gima, which is the gima of the mizbech. What is that? Meaning that the mizbech is a because the mizbech has to be whole with no holes in it. It says in one of Yechezkel, what is that? Meaning that you take your nail over it. If the nail gets stuck, there's something small, that means you have gima, which is a problem. That's what he asked. Why do we don't mention one of the gimas in his back itself? Right? So he says, gimas his back, it says clearly in the pasuk, upon shleimus. So you want to speak about it. Okay. And another interesting discussion that brings over here is how exactly did it come his back with no gima? How exactly they did it? Because you're not allowed to straighten it up, and if you use the shamir was that worm that made things whole, then that makes things smooth. It broke, wasn't smooth. So he says they had to take these rocks that are very smooth. Okay. Says the Gemara, Meisivei. You just said it's a very small hole, the size that the nail goes in. We learn it's a full tefach. Says the kazais. Lokash. The stones of his back cannot have cracks at all. The seed, the plaster on top of it, there you can have some cracks. That's okay. I sar sakino kamei chacham. I think you're over here. Okay, yeah. He didn't bring his knife in front of the chacham. Meshamtina and lay. You put him in the chair. They did not show the knife to the chacham. You get extra. You remove him. The trefi, and you announce that all the meats he did are treif. Depends if the knife got ruined or not. Meaning, if the knife, after he didn't show the chacham, they checked him out. It says everything is okay. It says still you should have showed the chacham, even though you're okay. You put him in the chair. Still he has mechila, he has to go take care of it. But his meat is still kosher, everything's still okay. But if they went and checked him and they saw there really was a problem, you didn't show the chacham and you're basically trying to trick the system. So then you remove it. Says the Gemara, in a case that we just said, that the knife was plugged with a problem, you put the meat into the part which is the perish, the dirt of the animal. Meaning the extra of the animal, you get rid of it. It's less It's like a regular neve
Sell it
to a guy. Here you can't make it. Why? Because we say, listen, you're not going to enjoy this now that you caused such a thing. I don't think so. I don't think it applies to that. There was this butcher who did not show his knife to Rav Chanina, to Rav Chanina. Shamte, so he put him to Cherem, the Avri, and he removed him from his position. The Achis Abisur the Trefahi, and he said, the meat is Trefa. He called as Jutu Ravash Lagabis. Ravash come to who? To Rav Bar Chanina. Amrlu, we told him, La'inu Rabbanon b'milsei. Please check this out. The Tolube Tafle, that he has little kids. In other words, I removed him from his position, but he has kids and he needs parnasa. You see, even though he was the one to put them out, but but he's trying to give away. He thought that's the halacha. Please, can you find me a solution? I don't want to remove this butcher. Even though you think you got insulted, it's not personal.
What's the truth? He's the one that did it, and it says Marzuch and Rashi came to him, and then he asked them.
He asked them. He said, "Everybody saying, can you?" I think the halacha is when you have someone who did not show the chacham, you have to remove him. Can you please check out this halacha to see if there's any kulo? Because this kid has kids. Says the Gemara Ravashi, Batkor Ravashi Sakine. And he says, Ravashi went to check his knife. He says, no, his knife is good. He didn't show the chacham, it was good. He says, good. You're good. You could be a butcher again. What about the covet of Rav Bar Chanina? He says, don't move. Rav, he called us. He asked us to come and check it out. Who knows? Shane, this is just the end where we saw the Mishnah. Saw regarding a tooth. We saw regarding a nail. Shane flusho. If you have a nail, you have a tooth which is disconnected from the body. That siporim flusho. You have a nail disconnected. Mutar lishchel boy lechatchila. I can use that lechatchila as a knife. So the more ve'ananan chutz magal katzir ve'amigiro. The magal katzir is the sickle. The megiro is a saw. Ve'ashinayim ve'atziporim, and we said teeth and nail. Because they kill the animal, they choke the animal. So the more Shane Loikash. Depends if it's one tooth or two teeth. If it's one tooth, it works well. If it's two, you have a hole between the teeth. And that hole is like the begima of the knife. With the knife, you have a little indentation. Yeah, like you take two teeth together and you're shechting like that. So there's sharpness in the tooth. So the problem is there's a hole in between. There's a little indentation, a little begima. Can't do it. So two teeth you can't do, but one tooth you could do. If it's disconnected, you can use it. With mechubar, we learned before you can't do shchita mechubar. As O'Shea say, you could have said the same answer regarding Shane mechubar talis. We just brought different answers. I mean, sometimes the person is he's in the middle of the island. You know, he got stuck in a desert island. So the Mishnah. Magal kotzer is a sickle that you use for wheat. And the way it works is the sharp edges are an angle. So when you go from one side, you're not going to reach because they're all going the sharpness doesn't go straight up, but it goes on an angle. So if you're going into that angle, you're not going to hit the holes. If you go the other angle, you will. It's like these, when you go to these parking lots, they have these, it's called in Hebrew dokranim. The teeth they come out. You go the wrong way, your car, you size the car. Nah. So say to go over here. If you're going in the right way, the knife it won't cut a hole in the animal. If you go the right way, it will. If the wrong way, it will. So it says but it did the right way. But say you can't use this. Says it's fine. If he smoothed it out and made it without the teeth, that's like a regular knife. If Basil said it's kosher, it just said it's not an available, it doesn't cause tumor, impurity. They're not allowed to eat it, but they should not use this knife. Why? Because it's a gzeiro. We do it in the Mishnah. Tani b'char poislim will be seal machshirim. It is possible kosher. Look, tani b'char oistrim will be seal matiri. Should have said, Besil Matthew, they're allowed to eat. It's kosher, but it's not. According to you, you want to say that according to B'Shammai it has two more. So if you want to be so specific, so use the Elosha two with arrow. And the poisu machshim, poisu matzim, chad meal say it's all the same thing. You're saying it's good or bad. Is it kosher or not kosher? Okay. Very good. So finished. Hashoichet mitoichat abas v'shir bo milo yachut apnei kulo shchitos leksheyu. Someone who's shechting in the tabas. Now I send the video, and we are going to use the picture book over here, which is very, very good. And it goes like this. It's good to look at the video, because the video, what the guy does over there, he takes this honey, which is basically the throat of the animal, and he turns it around so you see all the size. 3D. This is the honey, which is basically the throat of the animal. Now here you have in the honey. Let me do it here. If anybody's looking at the video,
in the article it has
also a picture. So when you look over here in this honey, it's a little hard to see in the picture over here, but basically this is the honey of the animal. It's good to look at the video that they have there in all daf. Basically, when you look at the honey over here, there is the bottom of this honey. Here's the top. The bottom has rings to it. The top ring is a full ring. So tabas gdoil, a full ring that goes around the neck. That's the top. The other ones are not full rings. They are only like it's called like horseshoes. Right? They have horseshoes. And then there's a little bit of a meat in that. So this is what you're seeing over here. These are the not full rings in the bottom, and this is the full ring on top. Hard to see in this picture, but this idea
all the way around.
Yes. That's it over here. In the video, it's clear.
You see it in the bottom.
Yeah. So it says like this. Someone is shechting in this big ring. In other words, when he shechted, he made sure that something of the ring stays intact. There's a whole you have a miloy chut, which is a miloy chut, which means like a size of a string, apnei kulo, an entire ring. So you have the ring. Let's say the ring is like a thick circle over here, and he's shechting inside. As long as then there is an entire layer of ring which was not cut, meaning which you have above the cut, so then she does the chair. No, you cut the whole thing, but you have this is empty. No, you have a circle. You have a circle. Let me finish this conversation. Here you have
circle's the trick here, right?
In English they call it the
You have two parts.
the cartilage. Cartilage is called. So the cartilage, you have over here the thing. When you shech, you have to make sure not to get out. Let's call this the big ring. Big ring is a full circle. You have to make sure that you're not getting out of the big ring. Meaning you can't cut and then get over here. You have to make sure that at least the big ring is completely intact in one end. So he's cutting. But he makes sure that at least part of the cup stays intact. Now the rest where you cut, the right and the left. In other words, he's taking the knife and he's checking. Make sure that this part was not touched. Okay?
Is that part of what keeps the animal alive?
Yeah, of course. That's
what it breeds.
That's what it breeds. Cotton. That's what it breeds.
I mean, that's what the
you're right. Through there.
Yeah, so it is trick.
It's around the cut. Rashi says clearly.
It is cutting.
Cutting it completely, not to kill it. But the shayla, when you cut, you have to make sure to cut within
all the way through.
All the way. You don't have to go all the way through. You don't have to go all the way through, but regardless, you could go all the way through, not all the way through. But you have to make sure that you're doing within this width. You're cutting. You don't go outside. Okay. That's the first shito.
Meaning dealing with length, not width.
Yeah.
Meaning technically there's other issues, but cutting right through the whole.
Let's see.
As a result, this is fine.
Right. We're talking here right now. I'm going. He cut the whole thing. Don't go sideways. Make sure to stay within the area of the ring. No, it's fine. You could go out, but as long as you have a circular here of a roif, there's a string, meaning there's a small layer that was at least majority of it was not touched. So you mean you cut the neck, and then he came to the end and he flipped out, like he skied out, but only at the end. He had the majority that was not touched. So then it's also okay. The Pascal again. Only the large ring. The large ring is what is the large ring? The large ring is the Huyul Makefes is a kon. Meaning you're talking about the large ring. So there he says, as long as you have a majority, you're good to go. But then in the small rings over here, these small rings that here, you cannot go based on majority. You don't cut it based on. So there's Rashi here brings in our daf 3 explanations. One of them wants to go the idea of if I can't go in roiv of a roiv, because they themselves are not a full ring, they're only a roiv. So if I got a roiv, it's a problem. That's how Rashi, that Pshat Rashi does not like. What Pshat Rashi likes, Rashi says, in general, I cannot cut the animal in the small rings. I have to cut it in between the small rings. But in the small rings, not. What's the idea? Because the small rings are not a full circle, that tells me they're not really the neck. They're like the layer above the neck. So if I have the neck, the big ring is going to be the neck itself. The other ones are just layers. So you can't cut from there. You have to cut from the in between. That's what Rashi learns. If you look at the last Rashi in Talmud, Shat Tabas, Kla, Ela Bein Tabas, between the rings. Kevin Shem Akivin's Kolakone was not a full circle. It's not the neck. It's not the kone. I mean, we have the simon. So that's why, according to Rashi, that's the pshat Rashi likes. You have 3 pshat in Rashi. That's the pshat Rashi stays. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, Ushat Tabos loy. What do we know? Tabos does not work. That time your Rabbi says when David Yechezkel base. When you check the other rings below the top ring, even though it's not circling all kone, but it does circle the majority of the circles. Meaning, in the general, if you get out of this place of the shchita, you start checking and going out. So it's possible. That's good. So, which we'll see. It just telling you that right now it's possible in that case. It's about it's rabbanon that hold that you cannot cut out of the ring. So you have to make sure you're within the rings itself, not out. But within the rings, I don't give us a big ring or the smaller rings which are below it is also good. He said mugremes is kosher. Meaning even completely above the ring. Meaning mugremes means is that you're leaving the rings. He says you can go beyond the rings. As Rashi points out, he's going to refer to what the Gemara says later. We're talking about here. You see our right side. Right over here, above the rings, there's something here which is called a koiva. It's called a hat. It goes in an angle. That's why it looks like a hat. It looks like a helmet. So that's the helmet. It says we'll see later in the daf. He goes on to say, you could get beyond the rings. You could cut where the hat is above it. So he's saying, so what does the Gemara say? You see over here that you could cut even between in the smaller rings, not only in the large rings. Why you said only the large rings? Says the Gemara, he said 2 things. Meaning, right, Rabbi himself holds you get shecht in the big ring and the small rings alike. But we Rabbi Shmuel, the Pascal Halacha, they say you can use only the big ring. They don't disagree with the small ring. They said he didn't say it. In other words, where I asked, you said he spoke on the big ring and not the small ring. That's not true. So yeah, he spoke about everything, but he disagreed with in the small rings and agreed with the big rings. Kisolik of Zero came to Eretz Yisrael Ochil mugremis the Rav Shmuel. So mugremis means out of its place. According to Rav Shmuel, you have to cut within the rings. You can't be above it. And he went there to Shul and he's eating above the rings, meaning the shechita that was not above the rings. Amrei. And Bavel was also. Rav Shmuel is Rav Bavel. He says also. Omri Lab, they asked you to Rav Shmuel. Didn't you come from Bavel? We said Sasser. Omri Man Omra. Who's the one who said that Rav Shmuel said it? Yosef Bar Chia. Rashi said that that's the Rav Yosef, the famous Rav Yosef. He's the one who called Rav Shmuel. Yosef Bar Chia Mikula Al Magami. He learned from many, and I don't know if he knows, if he remembers exactly who said what. Shamar Rav Yosef Ikber, he wasn't happy about it. Omar Mikula Al Magamino. You think I learned from many people and getting mixed up? How did I have you the Gamino? That Filusfeiko the Gavir Goris. Yehuda is very careful. I'm so careful with the Lashon. How do we know Yehuda is so careful with the Lashon to know which Rebbe it is? It wasn't sure if it's Rav or Shmuel. So he said clearly to make sure. I don't remember Rav or Shmuel because he learned by both. So he's very careful to say what it is. What did he say? There's no mumche. It's a side point. So you can take three individuals and they can look at the B'chor and say if there's a mumche. Okay? So the Gemara says, so Rabbi Zera said, I'm not even sure Rav or Shmuel said it. So another problem. Okay, forget about if Rav Shmuel said it or not. But the minhag in Bavel is not to rely on shechita above the rings. Rabbi Zera said, we have a din. When a person goes to a place where they have chumras, to another place, he has to keep the chumras where he came from. He has to keep the chumras he's going to. That's when we go from Bavel to Bavel. Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, Bavel. If you're going from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, are you Eretz Yisrael? And because we are, they are the ones the Bali Haru. Our case says only the Gabi Haru, now the Gabi taking on money. So in other words, it was very old. When you go to Eretz Yisrael, you can change your minute. If you change, when you become, you have to go to Eretz Yisrael, you have to live in Eretz Yisrael. So the Torah goes on to say when exactly you say it, when you don't exactly say it, but that's what comes out specific over here. Shechita is supposed to be in Bavel. We're very careful to do it within the rings. In Eretz Yisrael, they're allowed to do it above the rings. He went in the more calming. Even above Eretz Yisrael, but if you plan to go back, then you have to keep the chumras. Then you have to give 2 days out. He wasn't planning to go back, so he gets the new tools. The shaila is that does that halacha that you get the new things if you moved, does that apply everywhere? Only for Bavel Eretz Yisrael. So that's also a discussion in the Rishon. So what do you mean? We have Rabban that came from another area in Bavel, and they said Mugmeris, which means if you shechting above the rings, it is kosher. So the Chor you see over here that what? You said Bavel, they're knowing differently. Amalei Nahara Pashta means river, and it's been like every place has its own minhagim. Not everybody is the same. So therefore, even in Bavel itself, they're different minhag. He allowed in the edge of the hat, meaning not only above the rings, but to go to the head of the hat. Rashi says, look at the bottom of the Amud, 5 lines from the bottom. Above the kone, which is the throat over here, you have it's called the trachea. Trachea, sorry. So above you have a koiva above it. Now it's called koiva la roish. It's like a hat, like a helmet. So don't assume it's what goes on top of the vocal cords. We'll see in a second. It goes in an angle. So he says you could go and do in the right over here. You have this angle. You can check over here. Not only above the ring, you go even here on the angle to check over here, top of above it.
It's a cooler.
Yeah, even there. Giso. He says you went too much. You allowed too much. It has to be closer to the bottom. I'm not published with the Rava Pogo Bechiti Treif. If he hit the chiti, it's treif. What's chiti? Chiti literally means wheat. What are we talking about? We're talking about the vocal cords. And this is how it looks like. I don't know. Nobody eats much breakfast? The vocal cords are over here. See it? In the inside, you see these two strings. They're the vocal cords. This is what's called chit. So don't show yourself. But yeah. But if you come down, if you get to that, it says if you reach the vocal cords,
That's possible.
so that's a problem because that means you're too high. So he says, Hoga bechiti treif. If you reach the chiti, is treif, right? So he says, Hoga v'noga. Does he have to touch him? We find the b'gia can mean that he hit him. Somebody hit somebody else that killed him. It means you reached near, but you didn't touch it. It means they met him. So if you just get to that area, is a problem. Which means if you let a little bit. Rashi says, in other words, he left a little bit of the vocal cords down, so you're good. Which means you did hit it, but you left a little bit, it's still good. Omar Rav Amema, Bar Mayinuko have a Bar Mayinuko, the son of Mayinuko, have a Kamina Kabida of Chia Breda Ravayo. I was in front of Chia Ravayo. Homily Shia Bekidik Sherry, he also said, you can cut the vocal cords as long as you have something left in the vocal cords, it is kosher. Only if you have Ashi, only you have Shemin Mistubro, equal my Zutrul Ashi, you came to our place, the Dorash. Also, you can cut the vocal cords as long as you have something left is kosher. If you reach, the vocal cord is still kosher. But if you cut the vocal cords, meaning it's not just get to that area, but you literally cut it, so then it goes treif. Say what if you test them with Av? The hilchos. What's the halacha? Mishipui koiva velamato ksheiro. In other words, you can go up to the shipui koiva velamato. You get up to the shipui and anything below that. So it says it's from here before it starts going up. Rashi says, so from here, see me to say, this is the shipur koiva. From here it's good. From here it's bad.
It's like bubble.
What? Well, no, because it's even bubble has to be here. Here you're high. So he says, that's shir bechiti, because the vocal cord is over here. So as long as you're there, even though you're cutting the vocal cord, is okay. I'm not going to actually mishipa koiva velamato. He allowed to do mishipa koiva velamato, like we just said. Meaning that we at our Mishnah we learned about Rabbi Sabudo. But it says you have to do within the ring. Rabbi said Rabbi Sabudo says as long as you have right of the ring. The same shot is it's like saying I don't know this, I don't know that. I know the Shmuel. So you could check until you get to here. That's what Rashi mentioned the whole in this stuff. Says we pass it this way. That's why he says there's three pshatit in the standing order before. What exactly is kosher puzzle? Says Rashi, we don't care so much about that because we don't pass it that way. That was the standing order before. Says it mean we're exactly in the rings. We're talking about the smaller rings, between the rings. The night said we only can check them up to the top until you get to this point. So therefore we don't pass this way. So says Rashi. That's why we don't need to get so much into the details because Allah can do it very, very high. And that, if you want to, see